Professor Akwetey, this particular issue, some within your friends, within the anti-corruption CSOs, have said he should have just sacked them for their failure to meet his 31st March deadline.
First of all, I think we should commend the position he took and enforcing that, because for the 32 years we've been in the Fourth Republic, we hear about Assets Declaration, nothing happens. In fact, on one occasion when we were talking to civil society groups, had met former President Akufo-Addo and talking about this corruption and anti-corruption measures. And somewhere along the line, it came up that he's trying to enforce this, but people are also attributing their non-compliance to cultural things. People were afraid that if they declare their assets in an extended family and inheritance, where it is nephews and nieces who inherit and so on, they could lose their lives. I mean, that kind of thing.
But so now the declaration is not public.
Yes, it was.
So what's the fear?
But at that time, that's what the reasons they were given. And there were no mechanisms in place. So there was impunity. I think what President Mahama has done that needs to be commended is that the impunity time is over. Okay, you have to declare, there is time. He set the example. It was the first time we're seeing President, signing and giving his forms away, which then triggered that everybody is obliged to comply. That compliance, the moral suasion, is important, but it turns out it's not enough. And so he's found other means of, I think you go gradually. If it's a draconian measure, it also calls for a lot of investment in compliance, arresting people, doing this and so on. So it's the first stage, I think. I think the compliance would follow, because this is the first time that you're losing money and you're going to be fired and probably prosecuted. All these things have now been laid out, educating people on this, but also getting the public involved.
But the legal question has come up.
Yes.
The Constitution says you declare before assuming office.
Yes.
And every 4 years.
Yes.
These people did not default as far as the enabling law is concerned, because the enabling law gives you a grace period of 6 months. So why should the president be sanctioning them when they have not breached the enabling law, which says you have within 6 months to declare?
But if in 32 years this hasn't been, nothing happened to anybody, and he's now finding ways of getting people to act within the 6 months, and he says, I'm going to fire, I'll fire you in any case.
Fire me even when it's not the 6 month, which the law's parameter is 6 months.
Yes, but why would you wait till 6 months? I think that's why I said he's found a different way.
But how can you sanction me outside of the law? That's the question.
I think sanctioning people outside of the law probably would be a matter after the 6 months. He has.
But he's done it. They are losing 4 months' salary when it's not 6 months.
And then he's also said he'll sack them if you do not comply with that. I think we should look at things.
You sack them if you do not comply by end April, right?
Yes.
That's what the last thing he gave them, right?
Yes.
And by that time too.
You see, the moral suasion thing is also important. How many, assuming you sacked all of them, half of it, it's going to take you time to bring in new ministers, isn't it? And you have to go through all the processes again, the vetting and so on and so forth. But I think it's subtle. The way he started is gaining some results. But we would be happy to see him follow it further by saying those who haven't complied, you are out, and maybe there's prosecution. Something of the sort.
There were just a handful. There were not that many. So,
but at this stage, at least for the first time, we've seen declarations made within a certain time. So let's say that the 6 months now becomes the standard. If by 6 months our brother here hasn't declared, he's fired. And it could affect you for a long time in public.
The brother you pointed to is not in public service.
No, I'm using the 6 months to be there.
My family people are watching.
When he was there.
My family people are watching.
He was there, so I suppose that you should have done it.
I did. So, I did it twice.
I think you either do it drastically draconian, or you also use the moral suasion to educate and put the mechanisms there. You will still be punished.
when people went to Shraj,
Yes.
take for example Jean Mensah.
Yes.
She had not declared at the time that the complaint was made to Shraj. Shraj is the enforcer of this law.
Yes.
When somebody breaches it, you go to Shraj.
So what is this track record of?
Shraj said,
Yeah.
whilst the complaint was pending, and they had forwarded a copy to Jean Mensah, she had taken steps to to declare, and therefore they didn't punish her. They didn't do anything. Okay, I think a justice also was said to have submitted late.
Yes.
Late submission.
Yes.
And they said, well, what's the point? They have already met it, so we can't continue and go ahead and punish them. So even if lawfully constituted authority didn't issue sanctions, when the declaration was made after the deadline of 6 months, which people have an issue with because that is in contravention of the Constitution.
Yeah.
How much more the president seeking to sanction them when they have not gone beyond the deadline?
Well, I think they haven't gone beyond the deadline, but he wants them to do what should be done. And that's why I said sometimes moral suasion could be used to... This is a problem we've lived with 32 years or more. And there was no sanction whatsoever. But now he says, I will sack you. You've made the oath. He's provided, set the example. He did it openly. And he's gotten them to do that. The next stage we should go, let's say how many of them would comply with this by the deadline he's given, okay? And the sanctions that they suffer. Could this become then the culture we haven't had in 32 years? It's somehow, we've been able to tackle that and put the mechanisms in place. I think the ultimate sanction that he's giving you some time really to put in your declaration. If you don't, he said you'll be sacked. And I think at that point then, if a prosecution or something of the sort also follows.
No, you cannot prosecute at that time because the person has not breached the law.
But he's giving, isn't it the declaration that we want?
Why is the president's word law now? That's the question.
No,
I don't think it's law. I think
because people are suffering sanctions.
Well, that is true, but I think he's finding a way of. It's a cultural thing. I don't know which president in the past tackled it. They just left it quietly.
Okay.
And we didn't even see. But I think that after this, if he fails to enforce the rule, compliance with the measures he's taking, then that becomes a different thing altogether. But I think going draconian for 32 years, no action, he's put the mechanisms in place, and he's talking to them and saying, this is the last lap. But there's punishment in that. Mm-hmm. There is punishment. You're going to forfeit your job, you'll be prosecuted or whatever, and so on. And so he's created a process that makes escaping or dodging. So
this was supposed to be brief. Yes, Victor, you are the lawyer and you are within the government, so to speak.
Yeah.
Have you declared? How did this come about?
I've not
some 38 heads of state-owned institutions had defaulted. 4 regional ministers, 5 sector deputy ministers, and then there were 8 presidential staffers who had defaulted. But even this list, provided by the Fourth Estate, there were others who said that they had actually done it. So the Fourth Estate did not get the figures exactly correct. So now he gave them up to the end of April. If they didn't do it, then you lose your job.
And we're in May now.
Yeah.
Samson, let me commend the president. I think for so many years we hadn't seen this, that people were compelled to do it. Even the law gives them 6 months.
They may have done it quietly. A president may have told the people to do it quietly. He doesn't have to.
But he wanted
publicly
to carry along the public to see that I mean what I say. I want to walk the talk. And it is my government. The law has given him that duty to appoint people he wants to work with. And he say, any of my political appointees, this is what I want you to do. Even before the law kicks in, this is what I want to do. He who eats my bread, that's my will. So he's been given that duty and he appoints. And he says that if you don't do it, I will disappoint you. I will disappoint you.
I'll fire you.
Fire you and say that, look, then the vision that I have, you're not buying into the vision that I have. So that is what he's communicated, and he wants to make the public be aware that if you don't do it, this is what I would do.
He gave them 3 months.
3 months.
Period.
Now,
end of March.
Now, can you go
The 3 months period belongs to a PNDC law that has been repealed, which gave you 3 months grace period.
Yeah.
That's been repealed.
That's been repealed.
So the new ones are 6 months.
No,
So why?
I don't think that it is the law that he's following. He is saying that this is what I want all my appointees to comply. So that once my appointees have complied and I move on to another person, it will not be seen that I have not removed the spoke from my eyes and I'm now moving on to some other person, right? So that's what the president has done. Now, can you go, if the president has fired you and you say, oh, if the law says within 6 months, I should do it. I've not done it, so I want to go back that I've done it within the 6 months. That would be a gray area of the law that we will witness expanding the frontiers of the law. But the president has said, if you want to serve in my government, as a signal, the first signal, and being humane, you are losing some portion of your remuneration. And that remuneration is not even coming to me or going to the state. It's going to cater for the Mahama case, the chronic diseases, some poor people who can't pay for their disease. That is what that money is going to cater for. So I think that he should be commended for what has been done. Now, the only issue, as the law says...
Before the only issue, some have said that the constitutional provision says that you should do it before you assume office. So if he wants to show us good example, he should rather ask them to stick to the constitutional provision.
No. The problem, you see something, the problem with the asset declaration, have you seen the document before? The document. I had some people who came to me to help them. And once you look at the document and how you have to do it, it's a little bit technical. I think that we need education. Because people just come into office, they don't even understand. Because for me, as a lawyer, when I saw the document the first time, I told the person, look, let's wait. Let me study it and look at it so that we see how we'll be able to complete the form. So I see some genuine difficulties, challenges with the form itself, the way it is designed.
The officers at the Auditor General, they are there. They can show you what to do. Why do you...
But it's not everybody...
But something, you see, for me, something you haven't done for a period of time. Do you want to put all of them in jail? Because they never did. Are you going to put all of them in jail? That's why I think that institutions or enforcement must be enforced.
Yes.
But the first stage of getting people to get used to doing this, and all the story about if my family gets to know what I have, all those cultural reasons they use to escape complying with this. He's closed those doors. I think we must now look at the next door, which is that you would go to court and so on and so forth. But for now, is it getting results? Has his ministers complied or other public services? If it's improving the compliance, I think we're just testing it, but it doesn't take out the ultimate that will be prosecuted.
Yeah.